Hey, welcome back. We're here at the Venetian Gathering, day 2, with the Durb Morrison, tattooer, entrepreneur, MC,
A little bit of everything right now.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Seems to be going that way.
man, it does. So we were talking just a second ago about you've been tattooing 26 years, you said,
26
right?
years, yep.
So everyone knew you as a tattooer. For you were in magazines and stuff early on. So
Yeah.
this month marks my 20th year tattooing.
Nice.
So, but I've known of you for
Congratulations.
about as long as I've been tattooing. I've
Yeah.
known your name. So you've started transitioning though. I mean, we'll talk maybe a little tattooing, but I'd rather talk. We talked about tattooing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you started to transition to more of an entrepreneurial role, more of a business owner's role, and I always find walking the line between doing this show, I own a business outside of tattooing as well, that the mindset shift to have to like work, say with True Tubes all day and then
it's a
go in
balancing act.
and tattoo, the kind of change in mindset it's a challenge, huh?
Yeah,
I mean,
it is. You know, and you're giving your energy to multiple things. When I first started, it was strictly tattooing. You know, and I dedicated my life to tattooing. It's been 26 years now.
right.
But as it's gone on, you know, things develop and opportunities arise and things like that. And I have had an entrepreneur's mind, you know, from the get-go. I started tattooing actually when I was 17.
Wow.
You know, and I got into a studio right out of high school. So that was my life, and it's taken me everywhere. But as I've gotten more into tattooing, you know, I brought Hell City into it. You know, started doing conventions. The products naturally came along, mainly from the need for those products.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, over the years I've I guess gotten more into the industry side of things, a little bit more of the business. It does take away from the time that I could tattoo as much, or my art time, but I never really feel bad because every single thing I do, every email, every waking moment of my day involves tattooing.
Right.
So I'm not going out and working on cars and then trying to fit in tattooing.
Yeah.
So when I'm not sitting and making tattoos now, I'm giving back to tattooing. You know, I feel tattooing has given us all so much over the years that it's my chance to give back to tattooing, whether it's inventing like True Tubes and True Grips, which will pretty much always, those type of products are always going to be a part of tattooing now, which changes things. Hell City's influenced generations of tattooers now. So, you know, it feels good. It feels good, the progression that I'm at with everything that I've done back to tattooing. Now necessarily taking my time away from tattooing, I know that this is a moment in my life and it's something I have to seize. And then when I'm done doing, let's say, Hell City in the future and I go into more of a low gear, tattooing is always going to be there for me.
Do you
Art's
see yourself
always gonna be
picking
there.
that back up and,
Yeah.
and tattooing
Yeah,
more
I still
regularly?
tattoo
huh?
like 3 times a week.
Okay.
So, you know, I haven't completely not been able to tattoo. I got to be a little bit more efficient with my time and things
Right.
like that. So it's a juggling act to juggle all the business along with the art and things like that. But I seem to be getting better at it the longer I do it.
Yeah, yeah. We talked a little bit last night on a discussion panel about what's up?
Oh, he is?
We can
Okay.
pick up. What does that mean?
He's starting right now, then.
Do you need to introduce him?
Yeah, I got to.
We can take a break. We can pick this back
We can
up.
pick.
All right. So we were talking on a discussion panel last night about this, like the growth of conventions. They're everywhere,
Exploding.
and so yeah, and so having one of the more established conventions around, has it affected Hell City very much? Is it?
No, not at all. Actually, I think it's given life to Hell City. If anything, people know the caliber of artists and the caliber of what I do with Hell City. I think Hell City's influenced other conventions,
Sure.
whether it's influencing them, you know, to do their own show or to make their show better. You know, it's influenced the other promoters of conventions. I get a lot of other convention promoters that come to Hell City that actually ask me, like, would you walk around with me? And they have a lot of questions on how I'm doing things.
Right.
Because we're doing it so well and, you know, fluently. A lot of the focus is on the artists, the art, as well as entertainment and things like that. So I think Hell City is more influential for the modern tattoo convention going on.
Yeah, yeah. As far as that shift in mindset that we were talking about, we talked to a lot of artists that are interested in opening a shop, let's say, maybe not starting a business that physically makes products and has to, you know, manufacture and ship, but they're just trying to start a business and going from, a lot of them have a very kind of, the mindset is not a business mindset. They're not comfortable with processes and systems and you know, written things that are written down for other people to follow, so the business can work without their ever making every decision. Was that a tough transition for you? Did you learn that the hard way, or did
learning business?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole different monster.
Yeah.
Even I mean, from doing the conventions, that's a whole different monster. Products I'm realizing are a whole different monster. So everything has its own aspect that you have to learn. You know, learn as you go along, essentially. You know, I started my first studio in 1994.
Oh, okay.
You know, so I started learning the business of tattooing, I guess, at that point. I was never a studio owner before that. So that had a lot of hurdles, a lot of frustrations, a lot of dealing with other artists at that point, managing people. And then you get into Hell City. That's, still managing artists, but that's more of a promotional kind of putting on an event.
Yeah.
And then the products, learning how to promote products and things like that. They all have their own challenges. I think that as long as you don't grow too quickly and you're focusing on one step at a time, you're not like, the big picture that you want, but you focus on it step by step.
Right.
And people that like skip steps, they're going to fail because those steps are part of the learning experience with everything. So I like to sit back. I like to take my time and expand on things. Like I've done 19 Hell City shows in the last 14 years.
Wow.
The next 5 years, I got 10 shows to put on. Next 5 years, I'll be doing 10 Hell Cities.
Yeah.
But I think if I didn't take those slow steps, I wouldn't be where I'm at with it. It wouldn't have the longevity that it has and the respect that it has and things like that.
Sure.
And then coming from a tattoo artist, I think people are not more respected, but people have more knowledge about what they're doing when they have done it for so. I've tattooed for so long. I have been in the magazines for a long time and all that. And I think that people see that, so people support people that actually have done the tattooing. I've sat on my ass and tattooed for over 2 decades before I got into the business side.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is if you thought that helped. I know that at the clip that the industry is growing at, one thing you still hear regularly is tattooers want to support businesses that are run by their tattooers. So you if you think about True Grips or True Tubes or something like that, people are a lot more likely to support that.
Yeah.
Like when Cheyenne first came around, a lot of people were like, that's not even a tattoo company. I don't want anything to do with those.
Yeah. Well, I think the industry and tattooing, we do look at that stuff. I mean, there are great people out there that don't tattoo that do a good job at running tattoo businesses, but it's true. It's the core of the industry. We kind of look at who's done their time, and you're going to listen to the guy that knows what he's talking about, rather than somebody that's kind of I guess visually absorbing stuff and trying to regurgitate what he knows. So you do get a little bit more respect, I think, when you put your time into tattooing and then grow from there.
Yeah. And I guess overall that's a good thing. It may be more difficult for maybe suppliers that or people that want to get into the business that may have something good to offer but that didn't come from a tattoo background. It may be more difficult on them, but as a whole, it's probably a better thing and keeps the community a little tighter and kind of and maybe keeps it a more true art form than a lot of other art forms have stayed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know plenty of people that are putting on conventions, that own studios that haven't tattooed. They do have that little bit of a stigma, but certain people got to get past that. You can tell also over time whose intentions are right,
Sure.
So sometimes people get into it because it's popular or they get chicks or the money side of things,
Right.
But we're not idiots. The tattoo industry is very aware of what's going on and who's doing what. We all talk too. It's such a tight knit community.
Sure.
That we know who's faking it and who's real and whose intentions are good and who's trying to make money. And I think over time those will become even more relevant, and we weed them out, and the true industry stays there at that point.
Right. Yeah. I've always thought, we get the question a lot about the number of artists coming in and starting to tattoo, and people that are going and getting $50,000 art degrees to become tattooers, which did not exist in the 90s, whatever.
That's what's driving the art side of it, though.
Yeah, and and so people ask, like, well, does it make it more difficult? And I always feel like the amount of work that it takes to become established, especially today, it'll weed itself out for the most part. Just like the conventions we talked about, the promoters, the products. Yep. It just takes such a drive and so much discipline to have any kind of longevity that it'll kind of naturally weed itself out.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, the longevity of it too. Like if your heart's in it, like I've dedicated my life to this, and I know I'm going to be a part of tattooing till the day I die. And I'm going to keep giving as much energy to it as I can, you know. And I never really I take the opportunity. I take the things that present themselves. I think it's why I've gone so far with my careers. When opportunities present themselves, I try to give myself to it. You know, and I think that's just a winning combination with anything. You know,
Yeah.
and that's kind of people like we have here at the Venetian Tattoo Gathering or at Hell City or the Paradise Tattoo Gathering. You know, they're people that we know the heart's into it. You know, and the crowd knows that as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think that those shows that you just mentioned are unique in that they're doing a lot of what we're trying to do, and that's kind of bridge the gap, because there is still a gap between so-called fine art and tattooing. A lot of with tattooers, it seems more and more that they're coming from other art backgrounds, or at least they're working in other disciplines, and that's bringing. But if you go to the fine art community, outside of a handful of, they may know like Nico Hurtado at the Portrait Society of America conference because because his work is out there, but they don't know just yet what tattooing really brings these days and what tattooers are capable of.
I think we're seeing more young kids that are coming out of like you said, art colleges and really studying art. That's helping push the envelope with, you know, the art side of tattooing, you know, and that's what's taking it to the next level.
Right.
You know, and that's where, I mean, it's exploding. You know, artistically it's exploding, and things that are being done now on the skin. I mean, when I first started tattooing, I never would have thought type of artwork would be, you know, getting done. But it is. It's the people like Nico, there's people that are going out there and learning art that are able to, you know, translate it to a different medium.
Right.
You know.
And I think one thing that's unique about the newer group of artists that came up in an age of internet where they're able to like draw from so many influences, they aren't held to a lot of the same boundaries that I feel like I was coming up in tattooing. Like I thought for sure all of my line work had to be solid, and then my grays went in, and then my colors there was a very strict process that my mentors taught me, and that was the way it had to be.
The rules.
And those rules just don't they never considered that those were actual rules, and they're proving, you know, to a certain extent.
People are breaking the rules now, and that's what that's what has to go down. You have to break the rules to develop something new, or to move to that next step and break those boundaries. And that's what's going on now. We're seeing all the color tattoos and just portraits and just all the biomechanical work and all the special effects that people are able to do on skin.
Right.
It looks unreal.
Yeah,
you know,
and I guess we'll learn about the longevity of it in the long run.
True. I mean, I definitely have my opinions on what's going to last and what's not. I'm more of a traditionally based tattoo artist. I've been tattooing for so long.
Yeah.
So I still see that foundation as being very vital for a tattoo in 20 or 30 years from now.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It's also, like I say, right now it's the age of reinvention with tattooing, meaning people are trying all these new experiments, or they're taking like an old style and reinventing it. You know, or even with the products and the tattoo equipment, we're reinventing. Like rotary machines are bigger than ever right now. The pigments are better. Everything's getting reinvented, refined, and that's what's pushing us to the next level.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as long as people are treating their approaches like learning experiences. I know we've mentioned Nick Baxter a few times since his interview, but I've talked about him in every interview so far. But a couple of years ago, we were doing a show with him, and he was talking about, he talks about tattooing like painting. He talks about glazing or layering, adding more layers. And he said to me at one point, he's like, I realized after about 3 layers, I noticed after 4 or 5 years that anything over 3 layers didn't do anything for me. I was wasting time and money. It's like it's incredible that you recognized that. First off, that that you knew what went in, what you did in each layer. Then you see the tattoos years later, and you go like, yeah, all that stuff in the 4th and 5th sitting.
That's part of that learning
didn't
experience
do anything
too.
For me.
Yeah, that's part of that learning experience. You know what works, you know what holds up in the skin, and you eliminate some of those processes that are kind of essentially keeping you from getting to the finishing product over time. So yeah, you learn. Sometimes I think when you're first learning, you kind of can overcomplicate things, trying to learn.
Sure.
But it all comes back full circle when you start simplifying, and then you get the same effects, if not better effects out of it. And longevity of the tattoos is important as well.
Right. With how thin your time is spread now, and how you have to kind of break up your time between business and tattooing, how are you able to evolve as a tattooer at this point? Or are you at a point where you say, okay, I know I'm solid at this, and I don't have more time to put into working past it, so this is what I do?
Yeah, I think that's definitely where I'm at right now. I mean, for the last 26 years, I've definitely been trying to apply new things and stuff like that. Right now, I'm doing what I'm comfortable with, what works for me, because I don't want to say it's a routine, but like to balance everything, it does take a lot of time to learn new art and stuff like that. I'm comfortable where I'm at right now. I know my tattoos hold up; they're super bright for a long time. And that gives me a certain satisfaction within myself. You can look at one of my tattoos and be like, "That's a Durb tattoo." But where I'm at right now, I feel fluent with what I'm doing business-wise and tattooing. Unfortunately, I can't tattoo as much. And here's the thing with tattooing as well, that I found myself with all the business involved as well, because True Tubes is like blowing up. True Grips is getting really big. Hell City's blowing up.
Yeah.
So I found myself that with the little bit of time that I have, I'm just enjoying everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about outside art forms? Do you have any time to take on? Do you ever paint, draw outside of?
Let me go back to my point just a second ago.
Sure.
Actually, with the everything that I have going on, and tattooing and stuff like that, I found myself with all the business. I found myself when I was trying to tattoo as much as I had been, and then all the business going on, I had found myself getting mildly frustrated when I would try to enjoy doing a tattoo. One of those 3 tattoos that I could fit in that week.
Yeah.
And it's a little frustrating when I try to tattoo and my phone's blowing up and all these emails and all these business situations, and I never ever want to grow to be frustrated with tattooing or to not enjoy it.
Sure.
And that was that moment when I was like, okay, I may need to slow down a little bit on this, because I never want to not find tattooing enjoyable. So I think to preserve that, enjoyment of tattooing, enjoyment of art, you got to balance it. So I had to cut down on my tattooing to like 2 or 3 days a week. But that's the best thing that I could have done, because I know that when I'm done with all this, I'll come back and I'll be able to tattoo more and stuff like that as well.
Right. And I'm sure you'll draw a bit. Being at events like this and constantly being around incredible artists, you probably are absorbing more than you even realize, and who knows what you can bring to the table when you are focused on it.
Yeah. So when I'm around like this, with all the seminars, I get to visually and mentally absorb all that knowledge, and it does. I can take it home and apply it to my tattooing. And I do, even with how little I tattoo now. I can still apply all this stuff that I'm a part of within the industry to my own work.
Yeah. Are you taking new projects? Are you just working on existing projects? How are you?
I'm working on a lot of large projects right now. So a lot of the clients that I have are like sleeves and back pieces and stuff like that. I would like to do smaller tattoos.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the demand for my work's like a lot of the larger stuff.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of your time.
Right.
So I can't really fit in a lot of new clients with doing that. But I don't mind it. I enjoy the big projects and stuff like that as well.
There is something. I'm in the same boat. I just work on a few clients, and and they're repeat for the most part, mostly larger projects. So there's a sense of like these perpetual tattoos that never end, and you're like, God, I wish
that's what it feels like sometimes.
Right.
Exactly.
And then on the rare occasion you get to I went and did a guest spot not too long ago, and I had a day where I did 3 tattoos in one day, and I was like, I've never felt more accomplished.
Was that?
Look at how good I am. I finished 3 tattoos in the same day.
That feels good. It's like that instant gratification.
Right.
Finishing a tattoo. Yeah. Sometimes, I wish. Sometimes I wasn't doing such large tattoos, so I could finish, so my portfolio was growing and showing people I am tattooing.
Yeah.
But I show them like the back piece and full ribs a year and a half later.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where I'm at right now. But it's also enjoyable because I don't have as much time at night to sit and draw for. Like I used to draw for like 5 to 6 hours a night.
Sure.
To get ready for my tattoos the next day. Yeah. That 5 or 6 hours, there's a lot
gone.
A lot of stuff intermixed within there. So. Yeah. The larger tattoos are good because I'm not drawing constantly, you know. And I've also enjoyed, I think I've gotten more into my painting.
That's what I was going to ask.
Because I don't got to try to schedule a time for a client or anything like that. So it's actually kind of benefited my painting. What's taken away from my tattooing, I'm able to put that energy onto the canvas.
Yeah. Are you able to take time to do any like workshops, or do you painting completely? Are you mostly self-taught as a painter?
No, I've learned a lot of painting. Timothy Hoyer taught me a lot of painting and stuff like that. I just I absorb. So that's, I think that the being around what I call the tattoo family, and taking, being able to sit and listen to these seminars and things like that. I'm learning pretty much constantly. So
where is your portfolio mostly up to date, on Instagram or a website? Or
I actually you can go to durbmorrison.com. I keep it updated on there. Instagram's more, I guess, my travels, my life, the business side of things. Yeah. And I got juggling like 5 different Instagrams between, Hell City, True Tubes, RedTree Tattoo Gallery, my personal one.
Do you have any advice for people that are juggling tons of social media? What are you using app-wise? Are you just doing them all through? Now Instagram, you can manage multiple accounts with their new update. That's awesome.
Thank God.
Yeah. That was
I know. That's why I was waiting for that day, man, because that was a pain in the fucking ass going through and, switching and logging back in.
Yeah.
So – everything's becoming more time efficient, essentially, and now I'm able to manage my multiple businesses all at once. It still takes a lot of time. I actually hire some people too for social networking as well. So you get to a point where you're like, all right, I have to hand some of this stuff out, even though you want to like control it all, so it's done your way.
Yeah.
You know, I do have people that work for me,
Yeah.
like the Hell City Instagram, some of the True Tubes Instagram. There's 2 of us that do it, so.
Okay.
You know.
And that's one, back to the business side of it, that's one of the things that I think is so important for people to realize. Everyone wants to they feel responsible for every piece of content that comes out, and at some point you have to step back and go, okay, where's my time best spent? Where am I most valuable? Where am I least valuable?
Yeah.
And how easily can I write a process to dump that on somebody and focus more on this?
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing to do, especially for artists, I think, that feel so responsible for every piece of content that comes out.
Yeah, you want to have control of everything, you know, your art, your business, and all that. But the more you do, the bigger you grow, the less you can handle.
Sure.
Essentially. So, and you got to be wise too. You can't be a dumb business guy.
Right.
You know, there does come a point where you got to put your pride aside, you know, and bring people on. And at that point, it's about finding the right people that complement you, complement your business. They're professional, you know.
Sure.
So I carefully choose all that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I read, I forget the guy's name, but the guy that wrote the E-Myth book. I don't know if you ever read it, but it's awesome. But he talks about businesses that, you know, grow. They're taking off. They're getting to a point, and then they collapse on themselves or shrink back down out of the owner's own like insecurity, their unwillingness to pass off. Like it gets to a point, it's growing where there's no way for them to handle everything anymore.
Yeah.
And instead of being willing to pass things off, they shrink.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I think that's really common.
That's something I've learned too. Is like to hand things off to other people. I got an amazing crew of people that work for me. I got about 10 people that work for me.
That's
you
awesome.
know, and then I got 5 artists that work at my studio as well. So
Yeah.
I'm juggling everything from the True Tubes. We have a double warehouse now, so that takes multiple workers
Is that,
to run that.
where is True Tubes?
That's
based
in out of Columbus, Ohio.
It's out of Columbus. So
Yep.
you're manufacturing and everything there? Or
No,
is
we
it all
manufacture overseas.
okay.
You kind of have to.
But
You know
have
what?
the warehouse here.
Yeah, we have the
Okay.
warehouse here.
Yeah.
We do all of our back stock and our shipping out of here,
Yeah.
you know, for our clients and supply companies and things like that.
Right.
We wanted to be an American manufactured company, but unfortunately, I mean,
It's difficult.
once you get into products, you kind of see why people have to manufacture overseas because if I'm trying to make a disposable product, we've tried to go American, it's 5 times as expensive.
Yeah.
And just people
can't
afford that,
Yeah.
you know. So it's all learning lessons, you know, and there's some things you can do and some things you can't. You got to make the best decisions at those moments.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, man, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah,
Really
definitely.
appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on here.
If
It's
people,
awesome.
DurbMorrison.com, at Durb Morrison on Instagram. I'm sure you guys all know. When's the next Hell City? When is
Hell
it?
City, oh God, I got 10 shows to do the next 5 years. So
Yeah.
April of 2017, we're back in Ohio, and then August of 4 months later, we're back in Phoenix, Arizona. So
Sweet.
we have the pool party coming up this August. Actually, we're taking a year off. You know, I took a
okay.
year off mainly. I just want to get back to my roots.
Yeah.
I wanted to tattoo more, paint more. And focus on this show a little bit more. So we took the year off. We did that back in 2005. We took a year off at Hell City, and it makes people anticipate it more, you know. So it just grew. So I'm sure when we come back, I already get tons of emails. They're like, "When's Hell City?"
Yeah.
You know. So it'll be nice to bring it back. You know, I really enjoy what I'm doing. You know, and I'm glad to be giving back to tattooing. It's nice to hear that people are enjoying what I'm doing and the products and the shows. And to tell you the truth, it makes it all worth it at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Sure. Awesome.
No matter how gray my hair grows.
Yeah, absolutely. At least you still have it.
Yeah,
So I
right.
have to wear these hats. All right. Thanks, man.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having me.
TattooImprovement.com. Sign up. See you guys later.